E Jean Carroll, who will not let being Donald Trump's sex abuse survivor define her, just did something that even the courts didn't require her to do. She, upon receipt today of the $5.6 million that Donald Trump owed her, and it's his money coming out of the court registry. Don't let anybody fool you about that. It's his cash for having been adjudged by a jury to be found to have been a sex abuser. And all the dozens and dozens of women who have come forward to say they too have been abused by Donald Trump. They too participated in his infidelity and or were abused. All of them, many of whom have come forward in interviews, some of whom have testified in court on behalf of E Jean Carroll. There's only one person in the history of the world who obtained a judgment, a verdict from a jury of her peers, 9-0, unanimously finding that Donald Trump sex abused her. So the story is not just that E Jean Carroll finally got one of two major payments that Donald Trump owes her for being a sex abuser, for being a defamer of her, for being the person with whom the jury wanted to pay punitive damages. It's not just that. It's that when Donald Trump ran to court and told the Second Circuit Court of Appeals that he needed a stay, he needed to prevent the money last minute from going as ordered by Judge Kaplan over to E Jean Carroll, not because he didn't owe it, but because he thought, well, maybe I'll win this Hail Mary pass of the United States Supreme Court that nobody in the history of the United States Supreme Court has ever won, sending in a motion for reconsideration that they did not even invite. He said, she'll spend all the money, which of course she's entitled to do. She'll spend the money and then I'll have a hard time getting it back. And the Judge Eunice Lee on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, who is a Biden appointee, took a look at that and said, that's not irreparable harm. 4 factors for a stay. A major one is your likelihood to succeed on the merits, and you have to show irreparable harm, inadequate remedy at law. That money won't pay you back if somehow, it's not even a 1 in a million chance, it's a 0 in a million chance, you convince the United States Supreme Court to let you off the hook for being a civilly found sex abuser. Get the money back from E Jean Carroll, but she did something remarkable that shows she has more class, more dignity in her discarded toenail than Donald Trump has ever had in his entire body and ever will. She agreed to keep the money in her lawyer's interest-bearing trust account until she gets the final last laugh when the United States Supreme Court rejects his Hail Mary hand grenade and says, no, your motion for reconsideration is denied. She's waited this long. She's waited almost 3 years. She's 82, 83 years old. She'll wait a little bit longer. So even though no court required her to do it, E Jean Carroll did it because she's E Jean Carroll, because she's a lady of grace and graciousness, and she's showing the way and lighting the path for all sex abuse survivors and victims. And what is she doing with the first $5.6 million, or $5,625,005.48 to be specific? Whatever she darn well pleases. She may use it for her retirement. She may not. And then she's waiting to be on the receiving end of with another amount of money that another jury awarded her for defamation for punitive damages in New York, 9-0 again. She went 18-0 against Donald Trump in juries, and he testified in the one that the jury awarded the more money in. What is she going to do with that amount of money, which is now over $91 million running with interest? And don't worry, Donald Trump had to put up a bond. Nobody trusts Donald Trump. There is a surety company that is making sure and ensuring that E Jean Carroll gets her money one day. Now, that may not be till the first quarter of next year. That may be maybe the beginning of 2027 when the Supreme Court takes another look at his petition and says immunity, civil immunity from sex abuse. We never said that. That's even a bridge too far for us. You know, even with 2 people on the Supreme Court who have been accused in their own lifetime of being sex abusers and sex assaulters in Brett Kavanaugh and and Clarence Thomas. And so I wanted to report on, the top line of that she's getting the money. She's only getting, 5% of what she's owed, but she's getting it, and she got it already. We already got the docket entry with the court wiring the money to Robbie Kaplan's bank account. Here's what Robbie Kaplan, lawyer for E Jean Carroll since day one, friend of the pod, been on with us before and talked. This is what she had to say. 3 years ago, a unanimous 9-person jury found President Trump liable for sexually assaulting and defaming E Jean Carroll. Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, continued, "Today, we are pleased to report that she has received the damages payment the jury awarded her as a result of that verdict." Judge Lewis Kaplan kicked it all off 6 days ago when he said the following to end his order ordering the money be released and denying Donald Trump's motion for stay. In the last analysis, he wrote on page 6, defendant has been stalling this case for years. A jury unanimously concluded that he sexually abused and defamed plaintiff and awarded her damages accordingly. The judgment on that verdict has been upheld on appeal. En banc rehearing, meaning all 20 judges of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, has been denied. The Supreme Court has denied certiorari, has denied the right to take an appeal to the Supreme Court without dissent. Not one justice, not any of the 6 that Donald Trump thinks he owns, dissented. It is time for him to do equity and pay the judgment. And today he has. And I found it remarkable. By the way, you're here on MeidasTouch and on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button on Legal AF YouTube while you're at it. I'm so impressed with E Jean Carroll and her lawyers. They found such an elegant and efficient way to show up Donald Trump once again and give him 2 black eyes. You think I'm here for the money? E Jean Carroll has said she's not here for the money, that she was never going to keep all the money or most of the money. In fact, I interviewed her on that very point. And she said, I'm going to set up a foundation. It's already set up. Here's a clip of E Jean Carroll talking to me about the fund that she's setting up. Play the clip.
It was waived by Alina Habba and others a long, long time ago. And a long, long time ago, as referenced in the back-to-back oral arguments that Robbie so successfully argued in the last month or so. I don't see the United States Supreme Court, even this MAGA right-wing court, being that interested in events that happened when he was Citizen Trump, when he attacked you and defamed you at all. There's only one event or one series of events that happened when he was even president, which was the defamation after the fact. I just don't see this court in a civil matter having given him carte blanche in the criminal world, even they bailing him out and trying to do anything to undermine your judgments. That's my opinion.
I concur.
Looking good. It's looking good.
Yeah, I like that.
Does Robbie or anybody else give you a timeline on how this is going to work out or when?
No, but we have a foundation already set up, lobe and lobe, by the chair, Rachel Harris of the State Department. We've got the foundation ready to go. We're just waiting for the money, and then that money is going to be given out.
I know Ben, my podcast partner, was trying to convince you not to give it all out.
Yeah,
you mentioned something about he wanted to see you have it.
No, I don't need it. You know what? I'm 81. I know money doesn't make me happy. Adventure, going for a walk with the dogs, having a great fettuccine Alfredo. That's the stuff that makes me happy. I don't need a bunch of money.
Have you ever actually looked at the ingredient list on your dog's food? After the first ingredient, well, good luck. You see, kibble is made using extreme high heat to keep its shelf stable and inexpensive. So brands have to add back synthetic vitamins and minerals in the form of strange chemicals whose names you don't understand and you definitely cannot pronounce. Is that really what you want your dog eating? Sundays for Dogs is different. They start with more than 80% all natural meats and then finish with superfoods like kale and ginger and blueberries and gently air dries them instead of using high heat. Sundays doesn't look or smell like dog food. It looks like high quality human grade jerky. No fillers, no nutritional blends, no chemicals, just simple, complete nutrition. Founded by Dr. Tori Waxman, Sundays was created to meet her high standards as a veterinarian and as a dog parent. And the best part, Sundays requires no fridge, no freezer, no prep, no mess. You get the quality of a home-cooked meal with the scoop and serve ease of kibble. It's what dog food should have been all along. Over 100,000 dogs are eating Sundays, including mine, and the reviews speak for themselves, especially from owners of picky eaters who had never seen their dog get this excited about mealtime before. Make the switch to Sundays. Go right now to sundaysfordogs.com/legalaf50 and get 50% off your first order. Or you can use code legalaf50 at checkout. That's 50% off your first order at sundaysfordogs.com/legalaf50. sundaysfordogs.com/legalaf50 or use code legalaf50 at checkout. And for Donald Trump to say she's all about the money, it's dollar signs, it's money. No, that's Donald Trump projecting again. It's never been about the money. And so E. Jean Carroll, in a bit of PR upsmanship, declared that she's not taking the money right away. You think you're going to win at the United States Supreme Court? Ha ha, don't make me laugh. But I'll keep the money in an interest-bearing bank account on my side of the ledger while you go knock yourself out. And when he's finally embarrassed, although he's got to have a moral compass, he's got to have a conscience in order to be embarrassed. When he's finally publicly rebuked by the Supreme Court again, when they reject his petition for rehearing, a petition they did not invite nor desire, when that finally happens, then she'll take the money. She'll take the money. So your argument that I need the money, I want the money, I'm all about the money, I'm driven by money is false. No judge, no court has ordered her not to take the money and spend every dollar of it today if she so pleases, but that was her decision, her lawyer's decision. Period. Says so much about E. Jean Carroll, says so much about Donald Trump. He miscalculated once again. Here's the reason why the United States Supreme Court will never grant that petition for that petition for rehearing. It'd be one thing if after 13 times from February until 3 weeks ago, they hadn't rejected the petition. In order to make a petition for certiorari into an appeal granted, you need 4 votes from the Supreme Court. You need 5 to rule in your favor. He couldn't get 4 votes. Probably got 2. I could see Alito and Thomas constantly voting for him, but from the rest, he couldn't get 2 more. So it was denied, rejected, not granted in not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 13 different conferences that the Supreme Court met to consider what appeals they were going to take. And when they finally decided they had the votes, but they were against Donald Trump, and they had 5 votes or more, probably all 9, at least 7-2, they put the final nail in the coffin and they denied the petition for certiorari. They denied the appeal for Donald Trump. They denied even taking the appeal to hear the appeal. And they did it without dissent, meaning even his buddies didn't throw him a bone and bail him out of a sex abuse case. And with those cards having been dealt, his lawyers at Sullivan and Cromwell, and I mention them for a reason, because that's where the Southern District of New York new prosecutor comes from. That's where the Southern District of New York old prosecutor came from. That's where federal judges are coming from. These are the only lawyers in New York that took on Donald Trump's cases. They took on criminal cases. They took to appeal. They took on E. Jean Carroll cases, even though their partnership said they didn't want them to do that. Sullivan and Cromwell, big black mark on that once proud law firm. And they filed it in bad faith because they knew or should have known that this is not a good faith filing. This is not a good faith motion for rehearing. You didn't get one olive branch. You didn't get one. Talk about grasping at straws. Not one justice voted in your favor. And just 2 weeks later, you think you're going to convince them that Judge Lewis Kaplan let in other evidence of sexual misconduct by Donald Trump and did that in a way that's reversible error? Do you know the rules of evidence? Do you understand that in a sex abuse case, the prior bad acts of somebody like Donald Trump or anybody like Donald Trump comes into evidence to show conformity of that behavior? I mean, normally you're not allowed to bring in prior bad acts to prove the case in front of you, but you are in sexual abuse cases. That is Congress's will in the federal rules of evidence. And you know that. And yet nobody invited you to file that motion for reconsideration. You just wanted to use it to delay, hoping that maybe you'd only have to pay the estate of E Jean Carroll. She'll outlive you all. And as soon as she gets that last $92 million, which should happen in the next several months, for the second E Jean Carroll versus Donald Trump case, where she won $83.5 million, running with now over $7 million of interest backed by a surety bond. And the only question there is whether Alina Habba, how bad she effed up. Because she never raised any type of immunity, civil immunity. We call it Westfall immunity on behalf of Donald Trump at any time when she was supposed to. So she waived it. And the Lewis Kaplan, this district court judge, said she waived it. And the Second Circuit Court of Appeals said she waived it. And the en banc panel refused to take the case, and she waived it. The Supreme Court's not going to find that she didn't waive it. E Jean Carroll, I'll end it this way, has more class in her discarded toenail than Donald Trump has ever had in his entire life. And the fact that they just showed him up again to be the bigger and better person, which we always knew that she was, I found such cosmic justice. I wanted to report on it here on MeidasTouch and Legal AF. Continue to follow all that we do. Come over to Legal AF YouTube channel and hit our free subscribe button. Until my next report, this is Michael Popok.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.